I want to share with you a message that I received, part of a message that I received. Someone reached out and said, what am I supposed to do with this? So they had posted on Facebook, they'd posted a statement about the upheaval that they're noticing with Trump and especially Elon Musk and his band of folks who've been going out about into all those different government agencies and shutting things down and tinkering with databases and trying to get access to information and all that kind of stuff. And this is what the response from one of their friends was. And I thought this was interesting and I wanted to share it with you. So the friend responded with this, quote, "The Bible never told us to give our money to the government so the government could fund charitable organizations. That is shirking our responsibility to get our hands dirty. Trump intends to empower faith-based organizations to do the work that the government has done so inefficiently and with much corruption and fraud. That's what you're seeing happening. He is shutting down things that are rampant with fraud, waste, and abuse, and will build up faith-based organizations to do the heavy lifting as they should." All right. We're going to stay away from Trump's intention, and we're going to stay away from things like fraud, waste, and abuse, because in fairness, any organization is capable of fraud, waste, and abuse. And the church, regardless of denomination, has demonstrated time and time again, we are just as susceptible to fraud, waste, and abuse as any other organization that has ever walked the planet. We as church are capable of as much evil as anybody else. So to say that, well, we're going to equip the church to do this work because the church has somehow proven itself, that's nonsense. That is utter nonsense. So we're not going to get into all that because then it's just, this for that. And it's not going to get us anywhere. Let's come to the top. The Bible never told us to give our money to the government so the government could fund charitable organizations. This is true. This is absolutely true. The Bible does tell us to pay our taxes, and it tells us to pay our taxes in several different places, in several different ways, in several different contexts. Right from the time of Saul, when he became the first king of Israel. We're warned, right? The prophet warns the people about government, warns the people about having a king, warns the people about having an earthly ruler and the cost thereof. We're told the king's going to come and take our taxes, and the king's going to come and take our sons, and the king's going to come and take our daughters, and the king's going to come and take a share of our crops and our cattle and all the other stuff. And the king's going to use it for whatever the king wants to use it for. That's what comes with government. That's what comes with kings and rulers. They take. They just do, and they do. Whether it's a good reason or a bad reason, they do because they have to fund the government. Now here's the thing though. From ancient times, governments, kings, queens, whoever it happens to be, whether it was republics or empires, they have used tax money to feed people in their nations. They've used tax money that's raised through taxes. They've used money that's raised through debt, right? By borrowing money, they've used borrowed money to pay for the needs of their citizens. Rome would launch these massive infrastructure programs, in part to hire unemployed citizens to do work. Rome would use tax dollars to buy bread for the citizens of Rome. Persians did it. Greeks did it. Everybody did it. Because all of these kings, all of these emperors, all of these rulers, whoever they were, regardless of where they were, regardless of when they were, they understood one fundamental point, one fundamental truth. If the people are hungry enough, they will eat you. A miserable population will devour the rulers. a miserable population, a population that is starving, a population that is incredibly unhappy, will bring the government down. So while the Bible doesn't say you're to pay your tax dollars to a government and the government's going to use it so that the government can use it to do charity work, that is true. But from the time of the first taxes, I suspect, people of power have used those dollars to keep their citizens happy in order to maintain power. So while it's not implicitly said, history tells us that this is what it has been used for, among other things, right? But it has been used for this. Probably not to the extent that we see today, but it has been used for this. Second statement, though, that would be shirking our responsibility to get our hands dirty. Now, this, the commenter he's right. We're not actually supposed, church, we're not supposed to count on the government to look after our people. We're not. We're not supposed to say, you know what, I pay my tax dollars, so therefore I don't have to help my neighbor. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to pay our tax dollars strictly from a biblical perspective. From a Christian perspective, we are supposed to pay our tax dollars. Done. And then we're supposed to take care of our people. So we're never supposed to look at our tax dollars and go, well, that's my charitable effort for the day. Nope. That's my pay on to Caesar what is Caesar's part of the day. That is my living up to my civic responsibility part of the day. Now my charitable giving begins. Despite the fact that I paid my taxes, I am still a Christian, and therefore I am supposed to take care of my neighbor. I am supposed to provide for my neighbor. I'm supposed to love my neighbor. I'm supposed to give them food. I'm supposed to give them drink. I'm supposed to make sure that they have clothes. I'm supposed to make sure they have shelter. I'm supposed to visit them when they're sick. I'm supposed to visit them when they're in prison. I'm supposed to pray for them. I'm supposed to work for them. It doesn't matter if you paid your taxes or not. This is what's required of you. Paying your taxes to Caesar. Helping your neighbor for God. Okay? But what the writer here is trying to say is, what the writer here is trying to say is that we're shirking our responsibility as church by assuming the government's going to take care of people. Now, I'm taking it and twisting it and saying it's supposed to be both. It's actually supposed to be both. But let's assume the first statement is true, that we shouldn't be paying government. We shouldn't be paying government our tax money so that the government can take care of our neighbors. We should be doing that. Therefore, we should be doing that as church without the government's involvement at all. Well, again, I would say historically speaking, it's never been the case. But we as church have been called to take care of our neighbors. We have been called to sacrifice for our neighbors. There's a passage in Acts where it talks about the first church coming together, where everybody sold everything they had and they gave it all to the church, and everybody was looked after. Like, that's the ideal, right? I mean, that's what it says in Acts. That's what it says in scriptures. So you assume that's the first church. That must be the ideal. But we never, ever worked this way. Never after this did we work this way. Paul writes to, I think it's the Corinthians. Yeah, it's the Corinthians. Paul writes to the Corinthians because what he's hearing is that they now, instead of having one fellowship meal where they all break bread together, where they see everybody in the room as an equal, they've actually divided. And we have the rich people eating and we have the poor people eating. And the rich people, they're eating really, really well. And the poor people, they're not. And Paul is furious when he hears this. And he tears a strip off them. So we have heard in the epistles, in Paul's epistles, that the church has failed not only to take care of those who are outside the church, but they've actually failed to take care of the poor within the church. The church has never done this very well. See, we start throwing judgments out there. Well, I'd take care of them. I'd take care of them, but then I'd be enabling them. I'd take care of them, but then they would just drink more. I'd take care of them, but then they would just go buy drugs with it. I'd take care of them, but they should know better than to keep having kids. I'd take care of them, but they're not from here. I'd take care of them, but I hear they're gay. I'd take care of them, but well, they're migrants, they're immigrants, they shouldn't be here anyway. I'd take care of them, but we have a tendency, Christians have a tendency, and I'm speaking from a Christian context. It's probably true for every religion, but speaking from a Christian context, we have a tendency to come up with reasons why those people don't deserve our help. Those people deserve our help. Those people, they don't deserve our help. And those people, they don't deserve our help. Or we start putting conditions on it. We'll help you if you change your life. We'll help you if you sit through a sermon. We'll help you if you get baptized. We'll help you if you convert. We'll help you if you become a member of our church. We'll help you if you stop being gay. We'll help you if you quit drinking, quit smoking, quit whatever it happens to be. We'll put conditions on things. So our love, sadly, over time, again, and you can see it in history, there's always been poor because we've never really accepted. We've never really accepted the sacrificial nature of what the church is supposed to have, the sacrificial nature that the church is supposed to possess. We focused on the wrong things. We focus on the wrong things. Jesus does tell us, you're always going to have the poor with you. I've always taken that to mean there will always be people who are less fortunate. But I refuse to believe that means there's always going to be people who are starving. I refuse to believe that means there's always going to be people who are homeless, who are living rough, who are living outside. I refuse to believe that means that there isn't enough warmth, there isn't enough food, there isn't enough water, there isn't enough clothes, that there isn't enough resources, that all of us can have our most basic needs met. I don't believe that's what Jesus was talking about. I think what he was talking about, there's always going to be somebody out there to help. Now, does Trump intend to empower faith-based organizations? Not that I can see. The ELCA is half of their groups are struggling. They're confused. They're concerned. They have no idea if government funding is going to be in place for them to continue doing the community work that they've been doing. The work that they've been doing so that the government didn't have to do it. The Roman Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church in the U.S. have both come forward and said, we're laying people off from some of our charitable organizations because we don't know. We're not sure if government funding is supposed to be there. We don't know if we are going to continue being empowered to do this work, this life-saving work. The Bible never told us to give our money to the government so the government could fund charitable organizations. This is true. But governments have always taken care of their citizens because they didn't want their citizens rising up against them. Governments taking care of their citizens is not about us shirking our responsibilities. Shirking our responsibilities is when we say, well, I've paid my taxes, now I don't have to. I paid my taxes and the government has programs to feed children in school, so now I don't have to. That's shirking our responsibility. Amen.